Okay, diolch yn fawr iawn, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for the third of our series around online safety and future technologies. In our first session, we looked at online safety and that piece around how that supports you in school. In our second session last week, then, we had a little introduction into what AI is and what AI isn't, and looked at some of the real use cases for what that would look like in school. And then this week now we're looking at developing guidance for you in your school. Ensure then that you're covered and you're safe with everything that you need to focus on. We'll have two more sessions following this. Next week will be on how to effectively prompt an AI chatbot or a chat machine to get the information out of it that you require. And in the final session then we'll look at AI in your curriculum, so how you teach about AI and what you can use as part of the Hub platform already to support pupils and teachers' AI skills. So for those of you who've never met me before, my name's Sean Powell. I am the Associate Curriculum Partner for Digital Skills at the AS. So my responsibility is to support you all with your digital strategy, your vision and your curriculum. If there's anything you do require outside of AI support, anything digitally, please do feel free to get in contact using the email or the phone number there on my screen. So tonight's session, we're just going to cover off four things. The first is we're just going to look at digital resilience and just making sure that our online safety policies and our safeguarding policies are robust and that we're ensuring that we are safe as a school. We're then going to start looking at then how we go about implementing AI into our school practice. So not just running straight in 100 miles an hour into using it, carefully considering the steps we would take to implement the use of artificial intelligence. Then we'll look at the 7 principles of AI in education and how they can support your decision making and your thinking. And then at the end, I'll suggest some documentation that you may want to review in order to develop your own guidance. Now, I'll say straight off the bat, there hasn't been any guidance from Welsh Government yet in terms of how AI should be used in schools. So following today's session and the resources that I provide you, you will be able to develop your own guidance and practice for your own school and setting. Tonight is about supporting you with that journey. So let's start off then with considering digital resilience, and it's a little bit of a replay really of some of the things I mentioned in the first session and ensuring that our online safety policies are robust. And that's now thinking about and considering the use of artificial intelligence in our schools. Now, I would highly recommend, as part of the whole bigger picture of artificial intelligence and online safety in your school, engaging with the 360 Safe Cymru toolkit. Now, 360 Safe Cymru is a free self-evaluation toolkit that supports you with your online safeguarding procedures at your school. In fact, it's that important that in the Estyn supplementary guidance, there is a question there around the use of 360 Safe, asking, as a school, do you use 360 Safe? If you do not, then what are you using to ensure that your online safety policies and procedures are robust enough? So essentially, that online safety tool is essentially there to support you develop good practice and also to help keep your users safe in the online world. Now, you can access this by logging into your Hub account, clicking on the 360 Safe Cymru icon, and then accessing the 360 Safe tool. Once you've done that, you'll be able to then complete an online audit that covers the elements here that you can see on the screen. So there are 4 elements as part of the safety review, and they are the highest level in the structure, and they define the 4 main categories in which your review is carried out. And you can see there in the grey boxes, the review will cover policy and leadership, education, technology, and then outcomes. Each element provides you with a starting point for the review, and then it will consist of a number of strands and aspects seen underneath. You can see underneath the 4 grey boxes, there are 8 strands in the yellow, and they're divided then between those 4 elements. And then each of those strands then is further divided into the green aspects underneath. So there are in total 4 elements, 8 strands, and 21 aspects of the review to complete. Now, in that 21 aspects to complete, there are 5 level statements within each one that you can use to review your current policy, provision and practice. Level 5 is seen as the lowest level, moving up to level 1, which represents the highest level of achievement. Now, you as a school will select the statement that best reflects your current position. You can see there at level 2, there is an online safety mark. And as a school, once you have got level 2 across the board in all statements, elements and aspects, you are able to apply for the online safety mark, which comes at around a cost of about £800, I think, to apply for. But you don't need that badge. It's all about engaging with those resources. As you go through the review and you complete each of those statements and elements, you'll then see on your dashboard a radar graph that begins to be populated. And what this will do will provide you an overview of your school's progress within the tool, and also then the areas that need specific improvement. Now, the levels you will select will appear as a green kind of bar or green dots around the radar graph. The blue dots are the current national level, so the average level in schools around Wales. And then the red dots then are the recommended benchmark levels for the online safety tool. So I'd highly recommend, as part of this piece around developing your AI guidance in school, that you go back and review your 360 Safe to ensure that it's robust and covers all the aspects that you need. The other great thing about the 360 Safe Cymru Toolkit is that there are a number of resources that you can use to support you in terms of policies. If you search for 360 Safe in the resources section of Hub, or if you go into the Keeping Safe Online portal and select resources there, you will see the updated template policies and acceptable usage guidance for schools across Wales. Now, in there you can see there is a large list of different policies, agreements, things to consider that you can use for your school. Now, these have been thoroughly checked and rubber stamped by Welsh Government, so you can go through and tweak these to suit the needs of you and your school. So I would highly recommend starting there. But before we then start to consider AI, Common Sense Education put this report out last year now, AI and our kids, their considerations and guidance for parents, educators and policymakers. And I won't read through all of these here, but here are some of the key points and the key positions that Common Sense identified. Some of the things I think that are really important to think about and consider here is that generative AI tools can be a dangerous tool for people, and particularly children, to use. They do provide amazing opportunities to transform learning, but they will come with certain risks. We need to, as educators, consider and ask critical questions about generative AI tools before we use them. Let's not run 100 miles an hour into using the most exciting tool that we've seen on social media or on the web. Let's really consider how that's going to be used, how that's going to affect teaching and learning in the classroom. And most importantly, is that tool safe? And has it been checked by Welsh Government? And has it been checked by your local authority as well? So let's think about then how we can go about implementing AI into our school. What steps do we need to take and how do we go about that? So the information that we've gathered here today has come from the Teach AI website. And this is something I shared in the first session last week. So that's teachai.org, if anyone is interested in finding out a little bit more. And teachai.org is essentially an organisation put together of experts from teams such as code.org, Khan Academy, the ISTE standards team in America, UNESCO. There's a huge amount of experts involved with this organisation. And they've come up with a kind of a three-step process and some guiding principles for us as schools to consider. So this here then is the three-step process designed to integrate artificial intelligence into a learning environment effectively and ethically. So in stage one, the focus should be on about creating robust policy and guideline. We should understand the immediate risks associated with AI and be committed to ensuring that it does not undermine the quality of learning in the upcoming year. The policies should serve as a solid foundation addressing potential challenges and setting clear boundaries for AI utilization. So making sure that staff don't just go and use personal information, they have clear boundaries on what they can do and what they can't do throughout their use. As we move then into stage 2, this organisational learning phase, we start to facilitate that learning process. By making small but strategic investments, we should plan to harness the individual learning experiences of many educators who are already excited by AI. Now, that collective wisdom in your school or within your cluster will not only enhance that organisational knowledge, but it will also drive innovation in your schools too. So ensuring there at that point, we invest in professional learning, showing staff the tools that are available, how they can be used effectively and pedagogically in the classroom as well. Lastly, then, we move to stage 3, and this is where we identify areas of improvement and effective transformations. The goal here is to unveil opportunities that have the potential to scale and support the entire system within your school. Through continuous improvement and transformation, we should be aspiring to make AI an integral part of our school's educational landscape. So in essence, Teach AI is laying down the journey there of strong ethical foundations through policy making and guidance making, fostering that organisational learning, and then thinking about how that can be rolled out across your school to ensure effective and appropriate use as well. Just take a look at these then in detail. Just some questions there for you to consider on the screen, but there should be 4 key things that we should think about. So as part of that organisational learning stage, the first stage there, are we ensuring that the AI systems that we're using adhere to privacy and security guidelines? If you're not sure, contact your local authority and the GDPR team there and the security team will be able to check that out for you. But also, as these tools develop very quickly, we should be considering and regularly reviewing and updating our guidance documents to evolve around these evolving risks. We need to make sure then that we educate our students and staff on AI opportunities and risks, thinking about conducting workshops, the training sessions, and maybe in awareness programs, and thinking about AI's potential benefits, but also its ethical challenges too. We should clarify responsible use of AI tools, making sure that human review is always taken into account. So like I said in the previous slide, establishing clear guidelines for human oversight in AI decision making. And we said this last week that AI isn't always correct. It can be wrong. So making sure that we use human knowledge, our professional judgment to review that information and act on it accordingly. And I think the key thing here, and you can see that in bold on the slide, is emphasising the value of human interaction. AI should be there to augment, not replace human interaction. AI is not going to motivate a pupil to continue their work or to get to an end of a task. An adult will. So it's important that we encourage that collaboration, that empathy, and that critical thinking when using AI tools. Then when we think about stage 2, policy or guidance, again, some points there for you to consider on the screen, but just to re-emphasise, we should be prioritising professional development. Every member of staff will play a crucial role in the development of AI in your school. Take that time to invest in their skills and their knowledge through ensuring they have targeted training, making sure that they access chatbots or things like Copilot to really hone their skills on how they can get the most out of the AI that is available to them. Encourage educators to share their AI experiences. What are they using it for? What has worked? What hasn't worked? How have they saved themselves time? How has it had an impact on teaching and learning in the classroom? Have those conversations and share that widely amongst your school, but also within your cluster too. And finally then, make sure that as you're using these tools, make sure you're evaluating the tools that are available and thinking about whether those tools are innovative or are they, for want of a better word, a bit of a gimmick. You know, is it great to have them in the classroom, but what value added is that having to the learning process in the classroom? And I think a great example of that at the moment is the ability to generate images through Adobe Express. Now that can really support creative writing in your learners. If the image that hasn't been produced by the AI isn't what they were expecting, then that forces the learner to go back to reflect on what they've written, to edit it, to iterate, and to then place that prompt into their chatbot again. So that is a purposeful use of AI and making sure that we use it effectively. The final stage then of that implementation process is that improvement and transformation. At that stage 3, we should really consider the following. How is AI supporting learners and tailoring to their individual student needs? How can AI support project-based learning, making learners engage with real-world projects that are both purposeful, authentic, and contextual, which I think marries up to our curriculum really, really well. And finally then, how can AI support streamlining administrative tasks? I know there are schools and there are working groups at the moment thinking about how AI can really support some of that, the burden of paperwork. How can we use AI to cut down that time so that we can be more present and in the moment in the classroom as well? So those are the 3 kind of stages that Teach AI talk about in terms of implementing AI into the classroom or into your school or setting. I'm just going to pause there for a second because there's quite a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask at this point? I can't promise I'll have the answers, but if there is a question, please do feel free to unmute or pop that in the chat as we go along. No? Okay. So let's move on then to the 7 principles of AI in education. Google have something similar. They talk about their principles for AI and how they develop AI tools. This is about now thinking about how AI should be used in schools and things that we should consider as we go through. So I'm going to take you through these 7 principles, and as you're sort of creating and generating your policy or your guidance in your school, it would be good to have your guidance rooted in these 7 principles. So here then, according to teachai.org, are the 7 principles for AI in education: purpose, compliance, knowledge and balance, evaluation and agency, and finally integrity. So let's take then each of these principles in turn. So these are questions that you may want to consider asking when you sit down as a leadership team or as a digital lead, you sit down with your head teacher. These are the kinds of things that we should be considering as part of that purpose, that vision. Leaders should clarify the shared values that will guide the use of AI tools, especially those that were not specifically created for educational contexts. So again, another example here, there are lots of image generation tools out there, DALL-E, Adobe Firefly, and many others. But how many of those were specifically created for educational contexts? Adobe Firefly, built into Hub, has been built specifically for education. They have used, they've trained that chatbot through the use of non-copyright images. And you'll also notice that if you try to prompt it with something inappropriate, it won't allow it to happen. So that's a really positive and good example of a tool that's been created for educational contexts. So AI tools should be applied to serve existing goals, such as promoting student and staff well-being, enriching student learning experiences, and also then enhancing some of those administrative functions. But I guess what this one goes back to is, what does your current digital vision and strategy look like in your school? And how is that going to reflect the changes in technology with the emergence of AI within the curriculum? We might also want to consider, as part of that vision and strategy and our purpose, how are we addressing equity and ensuring that all learners have access to the tools? When we use those AI tools, have we considered the data implications, the age restrictions, and also the security concerns? And also, as part of that vision and strategy, are we teaching about the ethical use of AI and the impact that AI has on our lives and the ethical issues that arise? So I think purpose and defining your purpose for using your AI tools as part of your vision is a really key building block for how you're going to use these tools in your schools and settings. That takes us then on to compliance. And again, a couple of questions there that you may want to consider discussing in your teams. But when we implement AI systems, the key areas of technology policy to comply with are privacy, data security, student safety, and then data transfer and ownership, GDPR. But what underpins all of those things is safeguarding and protecting young children, which is why it's important that our online safety policies are robust and cover all of these areas. I think here a key takeaway about compliance is that AI systems learn by studying the patterns in vast amounts of data. So generally speaking, the more data they get, the better they are. Because more data is better, companies that own AI systems are incentivized to collect lots of data, often by collecting and processing data about their users and their purchasing data. So when you go to use an AI tool, first of all, if you're not sure about it, check with your local authority. But you could also do certain things like examining the privacy policy, check to see if it was developed for use in education, search for terms such as school use or FERPA or COPPA, so that's FERPA and COPPA, and they will tell you then whether they are within the right guidance when they're being built. But like I said, if you're not sure, check with your local authority team and check with your safeguarding policies and documents. Make sure that the tools you're using are safe, because in a world of social media, we'll often see educators and consultants sharing the newest and most exciting AI tools. Now, they all look wonderful, but it is important to ensure that that due diligence is completed before we run into the classroom the next day and start trying to use these things with your learners. If you do see some tools that you think are quite useful, there are ways of checking the use of some of these tools. So Common Sense Media, something we should all be familiar with as part of our online safety policies and teachings. They have a particular page on their website around AI. If you want to have a look at it, you can click on that blue link there at the top and it'll take you through to that. Or if you want to click and open it now, you can have a little look later. But on there, what they've got is an AI checking tool. So they have little tiles like this, and then you can click onto one. So this is ChatGPT as an example. It gives you a little bit of an overview of what it is, gives you an overall kind of safety rating, what type of AI it is, and then a privacy rating then for that site. Then it will give you like a breakdown of what it is, how it works, it's highlighting any harms and ethical risks that you should consider before using that tool. So it's worth having a look at our website if there are any tools you are considering using and checking how safe that they are. So that covers off compliance. Not the most exciting thing to think about, but probably the most important one to ensure safety for our learners. The third principle then is to consider knowledge and promoting AI literacy. Now, we spoke about AI literacy in our session last week, but foundational concepts of AI literacy include things such as computer science, ethics, psychology, data science, engineering, statistics, and other areas that are beyond STEM. AI literacy equips individuals to engage productively and responsibly with AI technologies in society, the economy, and their personal lives. Now, we can create opportunities for educators to collaborate and consolidate lessons learned, but it's important that we teach children as well to understand about what AI literacy is. So in essence, it's important that learners know the knowledge, skills, and attitudes associated with how artificial intelligence works, including its principles, its concepts, and applications, as well as how to use artificial intelligence, such as its limitations, implications, and ethical considerations. So lots of things for us to think about. Now, you might start thinking about how you can teach some of these skills through your online safety lessons. And there are resources which I'll share in a later session around how that can be done. But also then through things like computational thinking. Now, computational thinking is a great way to teach about how AI works. So using those skills there in the green to break down an AI problem, talk about how machines, the machine learning systems learn on patterns. They develop algorithmic thinking by understanding those patterns and predicting what's going to come next. So computational thinking is a really good way to unpick AI and how AI actually works. Then we move on to balance. And this is all about realizing the benefits of AI and addressing the risk. So again, some discussion questions there. I'm happy to share these slides following today's session if you wanted to do any work with your team. Your guidance should include responsible use cases in line with AI's potential to support the goals of your school. So how can it improve student and teacher well-being or outcomes of learners? And I think rather than just acknowledging the risks of AI in school, we should be providing guidance on mitigating those risks as well. So simple things like not including personal data of a child. You can talk generically, but if you say child A's name, their date of birth, what school they're in, where they live, that's far too much data to be shared. And it almost goes back to that saying that people used to say, if you wouldn't share it with your nan, don't share it online. So if you're thinking about the data you should share, if you wouldn't share it in a wider space, don't share it with the AI chatbots. And this is a slide that I showed you last week, just talking about some of the potential benefits and risks of using AI in education. And I won't go into too much detail there because we discussed that last week. Okay, so moving on to the fifth principle. And this one here really considers then how are learners engaging with AI, how are teachers engaging with AI, and how do they tell people that they're engaging with AI? Because I think it's necessary to address things such as plagiarism and other risks to academic integrity, but AI simultaneously offers staff and students an opportunity to emphasize the fundamental values that underpin our academic integrity. Things like honesty, trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. So for example, AI tools can help staff and students quickly cross-reference information or claims that they've seen, though the person that is dealing with that tool still needs to be critical and in the output. Now, students should be truthful in giving credit to sources and tools and honest in presenting work that is genuinely their own for evaluation and feedback. Learners should really be instructed about properly citing any instances where generative AI tools were used. And this goes back to some of the skills under the citizenship strand and the DCF, ensuring that learners are able to cite information and source that correctly and to tell people that that work isn't their own. So we're teaching a lot of those citizenship skills through the use of AI. But similarly, teachers should be transparent about their uses of AI and clear about how and when students are expected to use or not use AI. For example, a teacher might allow limited use of generative AI on specific assignments or parts of assignments and articulate why they do not allow its use in other assignments. So they understand, yes, you can use it in this one, but no, you can't use it in this one, and this is why. Teachers should also not use technologies that purport to identify the use of generative AI to detect cheating and plagiarism. So there's lots of tools out there that are saying, we will be able to tell you that this document has been written by AI, but the accuracy of those technologies is questionable, leading to the risk of things such as false positives and false negatives. Their use can promote a culture of policing assignments to maintain the status quo, rather than preparing students for a future where AI usage is ubiquitous. So there are some examples out there, like I said, of tools that can check whether AI has been used, but there are ways of talking to a chatbot to increase something called perplexity and burstness. Now, if you do that, what tends to happen there is it will rewrite it and make it sound more like a human has. So these tools are almost becoming smart enough already to beat the system. So what we really need to do is, rather than trying catching people cheating, is encouraging them to be honest about their use of AI throughout. Then when we move then to principle 6, and we think about agency and maintaining human decision making, Any decision-making practices supported by AI must enable human intervention and ultimately rely on human approval processes. These decisions include things such as instructional decisions, assessments, operational decisions such as hiring and resource allocation. AI systems should really serve as in a consultative and supportive role without replacing the responsibilities of students, teachers, and leaders. So yes, let's use them to help us in our decision making, but ultimately the humans should be making the final decision, using their professional judgment to recognize whether it's right or wrong. Because AI can be biased, it can throw out things called hallucinations, which is where it kind of makes things up. So we really need to be sure that when the final decision is made, it's been made by the human in mind. So don't create a document and just use that as your policy. Make sure that you've read over it, adapted it, changed it to suit the needs of your school. And I think Steve Jobs kind of summarized this really, really well. He said, the most important thing is a person who incites your curiosity and feeds your curiosity. And machines cannot do that in the same way that people can. So let's make sure that we're keeping human interaction, human decision making at the heart of everything we do with AI. The final one then, the final part here of the 7 steps and 7 principles is evaluation. And as we would do with any document that we use in school, our guidance should be reviewed and updated often to ensure that it continues to meet the school's needs and complies with changes in law, regulations, and the technology that you are using. Now, guidance and policies will benefit from feedback from various stakeholders, including your teachers, your parents, your learners, your governors, and the wider community as well, particularly now as AI will change rapidly. Now, I've used the word guidance a lot through this because with a policy will change quite quickly. Guidance and guiding principles are really, really important. Now, as I said at the start, there isn't yet a guidance or policy document from Welsh Government for us to use. So what I've done is I've had a little look online to find some useful documents that might help you starting off. You might need to just adapt them or adjust them to suit your school and setting. But I'm going to point you towards now some documents that might be useful. The first place to go to is the Hub Keeping Safe Online portal. Again, you can click this blue link here and that will take you to that page. And that's basically all the resources that Hub currently has on generative AI. And there's some useful kind of how-to guides in there and things to consider. The second document that I've had a look at has been written by Mark Anderson and Laura Knight. So those of you who know Mark Anderson, he goes by the alias the ICT Evangelist on Twitter and on LinkedIn. He put together a sort of draft policy template or guidance template that you could use in your school. Again, with this, it's not going to fit everything that you're looking for, but it might give you some key pointers and key things that you might want to consider in your AI guidance. And if you wanted to click on that blue link now, that will open up that page for you. So I'll just give you a second or two to click that if you'd like to look. Okay, the next one. Lots of schools and lots of people are using TeachMate AI to support them with resource creation, policy templates, etc., etc. They have got a policy template for the use of AI in school. It's a free download, so you can just go to teachmateai.com, go to their hub, and there is a policy template there that you can have a little look through again to provide you with some guidance on how that might look like. The AI educator, I often refer to Dan. I speak about his books in other sessions, but he has a number of resources that are available to access in terms of policy guidance, tools, reading, professional learning, access to free books that he's written. That can all be accessed through that link at the top, or you can go to the AIeducator.io. You can sign up to his weekly newsletter where he sends out up-to-date things and things that he's done. But you also get access to this ThingLink page here. There are a number of links to resources that he's used or created with his schools as well. The Teach AI website that I shared at the start of the session, that has also got a sample guidance document that you can have a little look at. Again, this was written with sort of an American audience in mind, but again, lots of important things in there that you might want to consider and pull out for your own document. And then we also have policies from UNESCO. That's quite a meaty one. So if you want some big bedtime reading, that's a really meaty one to have a little look at. But I'm sure if you put that into a chat bot and asked it to summarize it for you, it would. But it's quite an interesting document to have a little read through. And then the final bit then is the South Wales Grid for Learning. They've created a website or a page within their website around AI considerations for you and your school. So those of you who are familiar with South Wales Grid for Learning, they power basically the 360 Safe and 360 Cymru toolkit. And there's some useful resources on there around artificial intelligence considerations for your school. So lots and lots of information there about developing guidance. And I'm hoping as part of that session there, we've covered off the 4 key things they're looking at, just ensuring our 360 Safe policies are up to date. We've considered then how we can implement AI in 3 simple steps. Those 7 principles of AI and those being there to guide us in our use, and then some suggested documentation for you to consider following today's session. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be quite happy to take those now via the chat, or if you'd like to unmute, I could answer them for you. If not, then please could I ask everyone to just fill in the evaluation again by clicking on the link on the screen there, or by going to the link that's going to be in the chat now, or even further by scanning the QR code there on your screen.